After 40, subtle changes begin to happen in the body. Nothing dramatic at first, just small shifts. You may notice that your energy isn't quite the same. Focus feels a little less sharp. Mood fluctuates in ways that are easy to dismiss. And most people assume this is simply part of getting older. But here's what many don't realize. As we move into our 40s and beyond, the body doesn't absorb certain nutrients the way it used to, and one specific deficiency becomes increasingly common during this stage of life, often without obvious warning signs. In fact, studies suggest that a significant percentage of adults over 60, and even many in their 40s and 50s, may have suboptimal levels of this nutrient without knowing it. The deficiency I'm referring to is vitamin B12. And what makes it concerning isn't just how common it is, it's how easily it can go unnoticed. To understand why B12 becomes more relevant after 40, we need to look at what changes in the body. As we age, stomach acid production tends to decrease. That matters more than most people realize. Vitamin B12 doesn't just get absorbed automatically. It requires adequate stomach acid and a protein called intrinsic factor to be properly processed and absorbed in the small intestine. When stomach acid declines, which can naturally happen with age, absorption efficiency can drop. Certain medications can also influence this process. Digestive changes can play a role. Even subtle shifts in gut health matter. So while your diet may not have changed much, your body's ability to extract and use B12 might have, and that's where things start to become interesting. One of the first things people often notice, though they rarely connect it to B12, is persistent fatigue, not extreme exhaustion, just a steady, lingering tiredness that feels different. B12 plays a critical role in red blood cell production. Without adequate levels, oxygen delivery throughout the body can become less efficient. And when oxygen delivery drops, energy levels often follow. Another subtle change can be what many describe as brain fog, difficulty concentrating, forgetting small details, struggling to find words occasionally. B12 is deeply involved in neurological function. It helps maintain the protective covering around nerves, known as myelin. When levels decline, cognitive clarity can be affected long before more serious symptoms appear. Some people also experience mild tingling sensations in the hands or feet. This can feel harmless at first, but it's actually a neurological signal. Mood changes are another overlooked sign. Low B12 levels have been associated with shifts in mood, including irritability or low motivation. That's partly because B12 is involved in neurotransmitter production, the chemicals that influence how we feel and think. And here's where it becomes even more subtle. Because these changes develop gradually, many people attribute them entirely to aging, stress, or lifestyle, which means the underlying deficiency can continue quietly in the background. Now here's something that surprises many people. Even blood tests can sometimes fail to tell the full story. Standard lab ranges for B12 often define normal as anything above a certain minimum threshold. But symptoms can appear even when levels sit at the lower end of that normal range. Research has shown that neurological symptoms may begin before levels drop into what's considered clinical deficiency. In other words, normal doesn't always mean optimal. That doesn't mean lab tests are useless. They're very helpful. But context matters. How you feel matters. Patterns matter. This is why understanding your body becomes more important after 40. So what's the practical takeaway? First, awareness. If you've noticed persistent fatigue, cognitive fog, or subtle neurological symptoms, it may be worth discussing B12 levels with a healthcare professional, especially after 40. Second, diet still matters. B12 is naturally found in animal-based foods, such as meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. Individuals who follow vegetarian or vegan diets may need to be especially mindful. And third, avoid self-diagnosing or overcorrecting without guidance. More isn't always better. Balance is key. The goal isn't to fear aging, it's to adjust intelligently as the body changes. Aging doesn't automatically mean decline, but it does mean your body has different requirements than it did at 25. Small deficiencies can create subtle disruptions, and the earlier they're understood, the easier they are to address. Vitamin B12 is just one example. There are others we'll explore in future videos. Because understanding what changes after 40 isn't about alarm. It's about awareness. If you found this helpful, and you'd like to better understand how your body evolves after 40, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.